Thank you and welcome everyone to this second Academy in January. As we talked last week, we had 3 academies planned. One about property, that was the one of last week. We've done that. One about finalizing online surveys, that is this one. And the third one about the request command. And as you can see on the screen, we have decided to postpone that Academy because the example we were planning to build isn't ready yet. And we really want to use that example in that Academy. So that one will probably be in February. A cancellation of that third Academy will be sent later today. What we're going to do today, we'll talk about finalizing surveys. I will very shortly paint a picture how you finalize surveys and what the problematic part about that is. Then we do a demo where I will demo this, and I will demo the new feature that we have built to address one of those problems. We'll do a recap, and then as always, we have time for questions. It's not a very complicated feature that we have built, so I expect that this will take about 15 minutes and no more. What if? Finalizing online surveys. How are surveys finalized? Well, surveys are only finalized when an end-NGB or an end-ST command is issued. And issued means it is submitted to the end field server. Until that command has been submitted to the end field server, all interviews are active surveys, and only when that command is issued, the final status of that survey is set. So in case of an end, that will be a successful survey. In case of an end-NGB or an end-ST, those will be screened outs. If no command is issued, so if no end-NGB or end-ST command is issued, those surveys will become dropped outs if they have the active status for 50 minutes without any action actually being taken by the respondent. So what that means, if you are at the final page of your interview, so you know this is a successful interview, or you know that this is a screened out interview because they are at the last page, and the respondent then closes the browser or moves away to another URL, these interviews will become dropped outs. And that is problematic if you are using quota, because that means that your quota counts are off compared to the successfuls you have or the real successfuls you have. That is also when you're not using quotas, you are basically not counting a successful interview, which means that you will use more respondents than needed. So with that, let's move to the demo where I will actually demo what I just explained, and then we'll take a look at what features we already have to circumvent this problem and what new feature we built to also solve the last problem that we still had there. Okay. We first move to, I have prepared a few very simple scripts which only concentrate on ending these surveys and setting the status of these surveys. So the first one is a very simple one. One question: if it is a successful interview, we go to the part where we thank the respondents and then end it as a successful interview. If we choose this as a screened out, we go to the part where we again thank the respondent and then end the interview as a screened out. Let's also open Enfield Manager. And let's go to this survey, which is this survey. And let's keep an eye on the incoming interview so we can see their status and what actually happens when we run this interview. Now, this is the link that belongs to this interview. So let's start this interview. And as soon as we start and we move back, we see that we have need to refresh the screen, of course. We have a new active live interview, which is started less than a minute ago. So that is the interview that we just started. So let's move this to a successful interview. Then we are on, remember, this page here, where we say thank you for participating. So the end command is not issued yet, which we can also see in the sample table. If I refresh this one, it will still be active live. And only when I now do next and I actually move to the next part, which is the end command. So that's the moment where I submit that end command. Only at that point, we'll get to this page. This is a relocation. We'll talk about that later. And if we now check on this one, we'll see it's now a successful survey. On the other hand, if I would have done this, start the survey, successful interview, and at this point, at this screen, I would have said, okay, we're done. I'm closing this browser, which is not an unreasonable thing for a respondent to think. But if I do this and I then no F5, we'll see that we still have an active interview. That is the interview that I just started, and I have never submitted that end command. So this will remain an active interview for another 50 minutes, and then it will be changed into a dropped-out interview. So the same will happen for the screened outs. I'm not going to demo that. Exactly the same, as long as that end NGB command is not issued, it will remain an active live. And if it is never issued, at some point, it will become a dropped-out interview too. So that's one. Let's go to the next example, which is actually the same, but then we are using quotas. And that has the same problem. I will not demo that because it's pretty much the same, but it is the same thing. This is not counted in the quota until actually the end command is issued. Only then the quota is raised. Well, actually, let's take a look at that because it's easy to see. So let's do this one. Let's then go to that survey. This is this survey and monitor, go to the quota page. So you can see we have 4 people with the purchase intent, and only 1 in the age of 20 to 55. So let's make this an interview where we say yes, and age 20 to 55. And if we then take a look at the quota, and let's refresh that, you will see it is still 4-1, because this quota is only raised the moment I get to the success page, the final page. And again, the end command is not issued yet, so quota is still 4-1, and only when I then issue this success command, the quota is actually raised to Y. 5.2. So for quota, same thing, that quota is only raised the moment you finalize this interview. Even if you then use the option in the quota settings to limit the overshoot of active interviews, which basically means that active interviews, or at least a limited amount of those active interviews, are already counted as successful interviews. But even then, that quota count is only really raised at the end of the interview. And if these interviews are never finalized, they will become dropped outs too. And at that moment, they will no longer be counted in the quota either. Okay, that's the quota. Now let's move to the next example, which is, sorry, Windows. What's this? Okay. One of the reasons, one of the methods in which you can prevent this is by what you already saw. If we do that, if we issue that end command, it is relocating to another page. You can actually configure to which page it should be relocating. And one of the things that you could do is relocating to that page and move that thank you page to that relocation. Let's take a look how that works. First, we'll this is not the question I wanted. It should be this one then. Okay. I should probably open a different one. 5. Yeah. No, the same thing happens. Okay. Let's first take a look at the survey. And oh yeah, of course. Sorry. I'm using the same survey as this one for the first example. But only I'm using a survey where I actually relocate people to another page. So let's take a look at that survey. So see how to configure that. Back to surveys, and then we'll go to the relocation setup, and it's relatively straightforward. We have here a list of all the response codes, and I'm only relocating at this point code 18, which is the successful interviews, and I'm relocating that to the NIPO website. So that's what I do with this interview. That's all. So we'll run the same interview as before, only in a different survey where we have configured the relocations. So is this a successful interview? If I do that one, there is still this page in between where we say thank you, which is not the smartest thing to do, but let's talk about that later. Just to show that we are at this point here. And if I now do next, it will relocate to the NIPO website. This relocation only is for code 18 because that's the only one where I configured it. So if I do a screened out interview and I say thank you, it is still relocating to the default page, which is this pencil page. So there is one more thing to say about those relocations. You can also pass a variable when you are relocating. How to do that? That was the example we just already saw here. This is the same type of question. If this is a successful interview, I first ask a question: what should we pass to the relocation address, which is simply saved into a variable called rel var, which is configured as a sample data. And if we then take a look at the particular survey, which is the relocation var, and we take a look at the setup, again, field work, we'll see we are still relocating to the NIPO website. And between square brackets, between the curly brackets, we are passing the rel var variable. And what that looks like in, no. Set. Copy live link. We'll see here. So if this is a successful interview, it will now ask me what should we pass. Let's say Wednesday, it's 9:18 in Amsterdam. Next, then we are again at the page, thank you for participating. This is a successful interview. And at the next one, we'll relocate to the NIPO website. And as you can see, it has passed this variable to the website as well. There is still, of course, one problematic thing here, because if I do this as a successful interview and I pass something here, I still have this thank you for participating page here. So if the respondent at this point decided to close the survey, to close this tab, it will never be submitted. And that relocation will never be done. So a better way, if you are using relocations anyway, is to move that entire end page away from the survey and directly relocate by simply issue the end command and directly relocating to that relocation. Take a look how that works. Copy. Is this a successful interview? Yes. What should we pass? Let's pass this. And next, and now it will directly relocate, passing what we have set in the survey. This is how most of your surveys, because most of your online surveys will probably be panel surveys. This is how most of those panel surveys work. At the end, you relocate back to the panel and you pass to that panel what the outcome of this interview is and who and for whom this interview actually was. Now, the problem here is, what if you do not have a panel survey? It's not a very smart idea to start thanking people before that survey has ended, because as we've seen, if people close that browser, that survey will not be finalized. So our recommendation was always relocate people to a thank you page. That could be the default page, but that is a very generic page. If you want a more specific page for this interview, it means that you have to create that page, you have to host that page somewhere. And if you are using a specific theme for this survey and you want a thank you page in that theme as well, it also means that you have to have a specific page for each interview. That is the problem that we solved with this new feature. So let's take a look at that new feature. That is the end page. It's pretty straightforward. I'm using the same sort of interview as I used in the first example. So I either create a successful or a screened out, and I have created an end page. End page, thank you for participating, and end page. This will be for the successful interviews. And if you are using screened out codes, you will have to specify the specific screened out code for each interview. So this is end page 19, which belongs to end NGB. So for each a response code that you use, you will have to specify an end page. That's not needed, but if you don't specify an end page for a specific response code, that means that that response code will use the default route and will relocate to whatever is configured in the relocation address of that response code. So let's see how this works. For this one, let's actually go to the survey and let's keep an eye on interview that we just started. So sample, active live, less than a minute ago. This is the interview we just started. If we say that this is a successful interview, that immediately goes to that end, and then it routes to the end page. And if we now here we see that this now has become a successful interview. One of the things of the end page is there is no navigation whatsoever on this end page. So once you have routed someone to that end page, he cannot return to the survey. There is no navigation. If I actually move back to the survey, it will say, yeah, this interview was already completed. This is what we would want because we have finalized this interview. And one last thing to show is, as I said, you could pass things to the relocation. You can also still use all the variables in the survey in that end page as well, provided that you have actually declared that variable before the end page. In this particular case, I saved the name and I use that name in the end page as well. Let's take a look at that as well. Ooh. Yeah. Copy. So what is your name? That is my name. And this is a successful interview. And it says, thank you, Frank, for participating. So you can still use all the variables that are available in the survey on that end page as well. And this ends the demo. So let's return to our presentation. And let's do the recap. So make sure your respondents complete the survey. Make sure the correct end command is submitted to the survey. You do that either by relocating to a panel page or to a thank you page. If you do not want to use that, we now recommend use the end page command for a thank you page. Any questions?
Yes, Frank. One question came in so far. Will the end page work for the Enfield Chicago template only, or also for other templates?
The end page is a Odin command, so it will work in any template, provided the template knows of that command. So yeah, it simply uses the same makeup, the same markup as the page command. It's a page, but then a page without any navigation.
Okay, very clear. Those were the questions.
Okay. The final remarks. Recording, as always, will be available later this week. If you have any suggestions for a topic, please write to your help desk and we will take that into consideration. Next Academy, as said, the postponed request command we will do probably in February. Preparing this Academy made me aware that there probably is a sister Academy to this one, namely how to start an online survey. We will run an Academy about for that too. Also, because we are currently building a new feature for this, and there will be a academy about reporting. Remember, you should update your Odin developer if you want to use the new features, because otherwise the Odin developers will not recognize that feature. And that also means that if you are currently using the legacy parser to upload your Odin scripts, these new features will not work in that legacy parser. You have to use the latest parser for your Enfield service. Any new questions, Art?
Yeah, a last question came in, which is a little bit cryptic, but I think it relates to the audit trail. Will the end page be administered in the audit log CSV?
I don't know. I don't expect so, because the interview has ended at that point.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. That's all.
Okay, then thank you for joining, and talk to you next time. Right. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.